The question that raises, or all these questions raised, is: do we have the resources? Do we have the teachers? Do we have the if you like, the willpower to change a system that has been in steady decline, it would appear, if international tests are any comparison, for many years, not just the last 5? To join us to talk about that and whether or not teaching is now a profession that, to be perfectly honest with you, is endangered, is the Vice President of the New Zealand Principals Federation, Jason Miles. Jason, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Oh, Marina, thanks, Michael. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you this morning. I would like to just acknowledge, firstly, the passing of a NZPF member and principal of Glenfield College, Paul McKinley, overnight. We extend our heartfelt sympathies to Paul's whānau, school staff and students, and the wider Glenfield community, where I know he was very well respected and admired as a great leader.
Yes, it's a big school too, isn't it, Glenfield? I think it's got a roll of almost 2,000, over 2,000.
Yes. So that community will be hurting today, and I know that there'll be appropriate supports put in place for the staff and students, but it's a big shock to them.
I'm sure it is. Now, you're the Principals Federation. Explain to me what the Principals Federation is. Do you look after all principals, secondary, intermediate and primary, do you?
Yes, the New Zealand Principals Federation covers all of those sectors that you mentioned. So we have our members are principals right throughout New Zealand in different types of schools, secondary area schools, Catholic schools, kaupapa Māori. We cover all schools across New Zealand.
Does that include integrated schools and private schools or not?
Not the private schools, but integrated schools, yes. Okay,
all right. Thank you for explaining that. Now, you yourself will obviously be a principal too. What, primary or secondary, intermediate?
I'm a full primary school, so we go from year 1 to 8, based in Kaipoi in North Canterbury. And there are different types of primary, so some are contributing to year 6, but a lot of our primary schools are year 1 to 8. So the contributing schools, they go to intermediate schools and then on to secondary.
Now, one of the things that you can clarify for me as a parent, I think I explained, I've got a year 11, a year 13 girl. I've got my older daughter, she's in her first year at Auckland University. So all 3 of them went through COVID, 2020 to 2023, and were affected to greater or lesser degrees by it. Probably my boy, who's year 11, most of all, of the 3. Is there any way of... The thing that strikes me, and you can tell me, Jason, is each year, though, despite them not necessarily having the basics in place, and I'm thinking particularly of my boy, he's gone up a year. So he's now learning a curriculum of the year level of whatever year he's put into. It seems to me, on the basis of the statistics that we're getting, both independently and internally, that we've got children who have suffered significantly during COVID who don't have the basics in place before they learn the next bit. This must be very disadvantageous to their future learning, mustn't it?
First, apologies about the music. That's our bell music that you can hear behind me. The impacts of COVID are certainly have been a strong influence on the learning or the challenges for our children. You know, the period of lockdowns, the student illness, the teacher illness, which was impacted by the shortage of relievers, and the fact that schools had to double classes because of the shortage of our workforce. So all of those things had the impact that you're talking about. But our national curriculum goes from year 1 to 13. So, but the fact that you go from a year 9 to a year 10 or any change in any year level, you're still looking at where those children are at in relation to the national curriculum and teaching the children at that point. So going from one year to another isn't isn't part of that impact. But the fact that children have had difficulties in making sure that their learning is not impacted from those breaks has certainly been in play.
The other thing that strikes me also is that I'm a parent, and obviously an involved parent in my child's education. You'll have plenty of parents like that at your school, Jason. Similarly, you'll have parents that are laissez-faire about these matters and some who are perhaps openly hostile. But truancy rates now are the highest that they've been for many years. That hasn't improved. You've got a large number of disengaged kids in the compulsory education sector, and it would seem a large number of parents who don't really care. What is the solution to that? Because I can't see any policy answer on the horizon.
Oh, look, the challenges around attendance is certainly something that we all deal with and would love to see improved. That schools have systems in place where they try and support whānau to find out what the reasons are behind the attendance or lack of attendance and try and directly support the whānau. But we really need additional resourcing around that because there's only so much schools can do in that space.
I mean, you don't all have truancy officers, do you, or something similar?
No. The quality of the service across New Zealand, there's inequities there as well. So schools often take it upon themselves to try and do the best that they can because we've got the personal relationship with the whānau. The challenge around attendance is obvious because if a child's not at school, they're not able to learn. And we always look at our assessment data at the end of the year and look at the impact that it has had on the children who are attending less than 80% of the time. Our goal is to get students to be attending 90% of the time and try and emphasise the importance of that with our parents. But there are other things in play for some parents, including socio-economic and just providing the bare essentials for their children.
The other thing that was a big issue during the election campaign, and I think came as a surprise to many parents, is the lack of uniformity of a curriculum in New Zealand, particularly at primary school level or from sort of 1 to 10. And I have to say I've spoken to a number of teachers teaching in both the primary and the intermediate sector on that very issue, and was quite surprised that there wasn't a uniformity in curriculum. Gosh, even within a school, Jason, I was stunned that 2 year 5, year 6 teachers can be beside each other and teaching a completely different curriculum to their classes in the same school. Does this idea of having compulsory reading, writing, maths for an average of at least an hour a day and presumably a curriculum that attends that seem a good idea to you?
We're all for making sure that every school is doing the best they can for the students in English and maths. The Education Minister, Erica Stanford, has already acknowledged that most schools are already doing the 60 minutes of reading, writing and maths. Our focus is on what is being taught, because that's got to be the most important part of that. So, for example, in the last 5 or 6 years in New Zealand, there's been a focus on reading and how it is taught. So you may have heard of the term science of reading and structured literacy. So across New Zealand, there hasn't been a clear direction for schools in how we teach. Teachers certainly couldn't work any harder than what they're doing now, but the importance of a explicit, systematic, and making sure that everyone in the school is using the same language, you can't be underestimated, and that's what the structured literacy approach gives. It looks at the foundation skills that the children need to learn to read and the consistent approach for that. And across New Zealand, we really need our teachers to get that quality professional learning and development around structured literacy and the best way to teach writing and the structure around maths that will impact on it.
Jason, but the thing that stuns me is that we've been having declining standards apparently internationally in reading, writing, maths for some time now. I mean, it's not like the last 5 years. You can't even say to the last government, oh, you did this. It was happening before then. I mean, I'm sitting here again as a parent and as somebody who is interested in education and staggered that you're having to do what you say you're going to do in terms of structured literacy and improve when you would have thought that teachers know how to teach reading.